everyone, it's Desiree. I hope everyone is enjoying the holiday weekend that's here in the States, enjoying the time with your friends and family. But I just wanted to pop in and show you another 5-card 1-kit series that I do for the Simon Says card kit, and this one's from the August 2018. So let's just jump right in with card number 1. Now, to save time, I did do a lot of the coloring off camera because I did use my colored pencils and I had a ball with it. Why? Because we lost power. Yeah. So this is the paper that I use. Now, this is one of my favorites. I recently found this. It comes in tone tan, gray, and blue. It's from Strathmore. It is actually 40 pounds and it's a mixed media paper. It's very similar to their sketch paper that you can get in toned gray and tan, but that's only 80 pounds and it is very thin. It's thinner than the 80 pound that we know. I like this paper because it's got a good tooth, but what I also enjoy using first is Bristol. I think the Bristol vellum paper is absolutely perfect for colored pencils. So that's my favorite. This is my second favorite now that I found it. So we probably have a nice tie going on here. So I'm stamping my first image and I'm using the Barely Beige from Simon Says. I use this a lot. Yeah, I got a boo-boo. I do use that ink a lot along with their fog ink because when I do colored pencils, it is normally a no-line coloring. So through the magic of time, I actually already have this image colored, and I was very inspired by a video that Yana Smakula did using this exact same stamp. Now, I didn't double it like she did. I didn't have the guts to do that, but she did when it came to the colors for the papers and just the way that she did this. So thank you. So after I had that colored, I used one of my stitched square rectangles from My Favorite Things and cut that down. And then I'm using the sentiment For You. Now I also used the Barely Beige again to stamp, and I stamped this multiple times. Now I will say this really, even though that looks dark, it looks great. Let me tell you what, after a while, it really dries back. So I did go back over with Moonlit Fog from Gina K, just to make it a little bit darker. I didn't want it black. I wanted it soft. Like colored pencil to me it's a soft technique. Even though you may use harsh colors, it's still very soft. It doesn't, whack you in the face. So I trimmed down one of the papers to be 4 inches by 5 1/4. Nope, did not use a die. And that's going to be my backdrop. I thought it matched perfectly with the other yellows that I used, and I'm going to prop up my square using some double-sided foam tape. Once that's cut down, I'm going to remove the backing and I'm going to place that in the center but towards the top. If you've seen my previous videos, you know I really don't like to put things dead center. I'm not sure why, it's just me. To give this some more accents, there's my standard A2 size card base, and that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I usually do go with a top folding. I'm going to use my art glitter glue to adhere this down onto my card panel, or excuse me, my card base. And I'm pulling in some Nouveau drops, the Coast Gold. And it just adds some beautiful shimmer. This is a glitter drop by Nouveau. And I'm just going to place that around, and then I real quick think, and I'm going to add it to the center of my flower as well. Again, just a little bit of sparkle to add to the card. So for card number 2, this is a really quick way to make a card. I cut down some of the pattern papers. I'm going to trim this blue one down just a little bit more. It's a little bit too wide. The pink was cut to be 1 inch wide. And this one we're going to cut down to about 1 1/4. Or excuse me, 1 1/2. The ends of these because I just want some banners to come down on the one side of my panel. Yes, my panel was cut with the wonky stitched rectangle die by My Favorite Things, so it has come back. I know you all were missing it. I hadn't used it in a while. I couldn't believe it with some of the videos I was watching. I'm going to stagger these on top of each other, and I just want to place them on my panel so that I know where I'm going to stamp my images. The ink that I'm using is by Stampin' Up. I am a fan of their inks, and this is soft. Oh, wait a minute. I got it. Soft Sky. I covered it up. And I'm just going to stamp the images of the tulips in the mason jar off to the right-hand side, because the banners will come down on the left. To adhere these, I actually grabbed my mini stapler by Stampin' Up. It is no longer available from Stampin' Up, I believe. I believe they discontinued it. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that, but I thought they did because I know I grabbed up all the staples that I could from them. And I stapled it in an X, and that's what's going to hold down the banners onto this panel. So now, I didn't prop anything up. You guys know I like dimension, so I am going to grab some fun foam to put behind this panel, and I'm going to trim it down just a little bit smaller than the size of this panel. And I'm going to use my 2-inch double-sided, very strong, super strong tape. It's called a film tape, and I get it from Uline. And I'm going to place that down behind my base. And I'm just noticing my Band-Aid matches the fun foam. That's too funny. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to now adhere this. Now this tape is, it's a good cost. I don't think it's bad, but it is really strong. So you got to make sure you're dead on, because once it's down, it don't come back up. Trust me, I've tried. I stamped my sentiment in the same ink, and it says, "For your kindness." I grabbed my Rose Water Nouveau Jewel Drops, and I'm just going to place them around my image. Not near the banners, but I'm going to come up. I'm finding with the Nouveau Jewel Drops, they're thickening up. Is anybody else having that problem? I'm thinking it's just me. Some of them, they're very difficult to come out. Is there a way to loosen them back up? Let me know. I grabbed my Spectrum Noir glitter pen, and I'm going to fill in the flowers. So, of course, I got carried away squeezing it, and we have some on that piece of paper. And I'm just going to fill them in. So, with these images, you don't necessarily have to color. The images on their own are absolutely beautiful. I really did enjoy these images, but they are great just to stand on their own. Use a different ink. You could stamp them in a variegated sense, whatever it is. So you don't ever have to be forced that you either have to watercolor or use your pencils or your Copics for any of your images. For card number 3, as you can see, it was already colored. Now, what I also found with this kit, I was able to come in with a lot of my colored pencils. I have many sets. I'm collecting them now. I think I'm up to 11. And they range from Crayola all the way up to the Prismacolors and Polychromos. These were actually, and I'll actually show you the box soon, were actually colored using the Lyra's colored pencils, which are very nice. So my image again was stamped in Barely Beige. I did stamp the sentiment a couple times with that as well. I'm using a die from my stash, and it's from Gina Marie Designs. And this is a great tag die, which is what I usually use this for. Just know that with that sentiment, again, I did come back. It was like a day later, I noticed I could hardly see the sentiment. I came back with Moonlit Fog on top of it. Again, it was a soft ink because I didn't want to go with black with any of these images. I pulled out some twine from my stash, and I used my hole puncher to punch my hole at the top, and I'm going to double this up and thread my strings through this to create a small tassel. I'm going to trim that, and then I'm going to use my double-sided tape to prop this up onto my card panel using the pattern papers that came with the kit, and I cut that down to 4 by 5 1/4. I did not use a die for that one either. Yeah, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's quicker just to cut the paper. I'm going to remove the release paper and I'm going to set my tag down on an angle on top of my design base. I'm going to tuck those tags up under, or tassels up underneath the tag, and I'm going to use my art glitter glue to adhere this straight down onto my standard A2 size card base, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding. From my stash, I believe I'm going to show you now the Lyra pencils that I have, and they are really nice. I haven't found a bad color pencil, so asking me what's good and bad is not really a good question. I love them all. I think they're all great, and they all work very well. So I just collect them now at this point. I'm dug into my stash and I pulled out my Vanilla Delight Nouveau sequins, and I'm going to place them around my image because the vanilla is actually going to pull the cream from the pattern paper in the background. I grabbed the Gold Coast glitter drops again, and I'm going to put those in the center of the sequins just to give them some sparkle as well. And plus it helps to adhere them down. For our next card, I had to play with the very large background stamp because it's absolutely beautiful. That came in the kit. And you can see I'm going to use the script pattern paper that also came in the kit. Now you're going to see I'm going to remove the fun foam. So I use this just a general piece of fun foam for when I stamp. So my stamp positioner always stays on the rubber side because you can put it to a clear. I am realizing that I needed to remove that, and I'm just going to use some repositional tape. Saw that from Vicky, whose last name I do not attempt to pronounce. I watch her religiously, and that's what I'm going to use. I didn't want to use my magnets. And I now have that in position, and I pulled out one of my Altenew inks called Blush, and I'm going to stamp this right on top of the pattern paper. So you kind of get two textures on your paper. Half of it was already done for you because it's already set as a pattern paper. You can see that the image is slowly starting to come up, but I am going to stamp this a second time just to make sure it's a little darker. Again, this will dry back, but it didn't dry back so much that you cannot see it, like the sentiments that I was stamping there for a while. So I put the fun foam back in because we're not going to use any more rubber stamps. And I just have a scratch piece of paper here, and I'm going to stamp the fence. And again, for this kit, I had a feeling of calmness, a feeling of soft. So I'm using the Barely Beige again, and I'm going to stamp that a couple times. And even though, yes, that did dry back, it's on white paper, so it didn't go back too far. I'm pulling out my blush from Altenew again, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment "Thank You" a couple times right on top of the fence in the center of it. I came up with this brilliant idea to fussy cut the fence out, and you can see right where I was going that, yeah, this was not going to last very long. But again, I like to show you we're going to the left, all of a sudden we go to the right. Things may not look good. But once I tore the bottom of that fence, now I knew where I wanted to go. I couldn't rip the top, but what I could do was grab my penny black vintage frame die and just use the one edge on the top and the bottom. It was exactly what I was looking for. So again, never give up. I change my mind or I do something that is just horrible, like forgetting to remove my repositional tape. Yeah. So couldn't understand why it was sticking. So I just like to remove that. And now I'm going to use my Altenew tape runner, which is not repositional, and I'm going to place my panel when I did use my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die to cut that out. And I'm going to use my double-sided tape to prop up my somewhat torn or fake torn looking fence with my sentiment. And then I'm going to grab my rose water Jewel Drops again by Nuvo. And you can see, you just have that faint texture going in the back. You know, just because you put texture doesn't mean it has to hit you in the face and go, wah. It can be soft. It can be subtle. I'm using my rose water, and I'm actually going in the center of all the flowers. So there was a lot going on there. But I just wanted to add that texture as well, because remember, they do dry translucent. So for our last card, again, I did do some stamping with the background stamp just in a certain section. I did also pre-color that image as well. And I'm going to use my penny black antique frame die. This is my, I'm going to say it's 1B, because my favorite things is still 1A for my frame dies. I pulled out one of my Copic markers or alcohol markers just to give that a shadow, because it was kind of floating there just a little bit. I'm going to trim down, my panel here from my pattern paper, and that's going to measure 5 1/4 by 3 inches. Here is, I did pull out some intense black on this one. I had a lot of gray, but with the size of this sentiment, I think I was figuring out by using the Barely Beige or the Fog, it was just drying back too far. So since this was such a very small sentiment, and I really stamped it with a light touch, so it looks almost like a charcoal gray. At least in my mind it did. I was really playing around there. Again, very calm, very, very relaxed when I was doing these. And it was funny because I literally did cut my images. We lost power when I was doing this kit. My husband was ready to get the Valium for me because I was flipping out. Because, oh my God, I have to do my cards. So I figured, you know what? It was during the day that we lost power. And it was okay. I mean, unfortunately, there was somebody that hit the pole, and they are okay. Because after all my flipping out, I had to find out. Yes, because my karma. Got to get the karma back in place. There are more important things than my cards. But I just stamped them since I did have daylight, and I was able to sit outside in my sunroom and color my images. So that was my little story, Gabby story, sorry. I did use the bubblegum Nuvo drops that did come in the kit, and I already had it, so I used mine. I didn't want to open up the one that came in the kit. I had to play with these adorable Doodlebug puffy hearts or little tiny stickers there, and I used the colors that I used when I colored my image. So those are all set. These, for this image, I believe I used my polychromos for this one. The first image I used my Prismacolors. I grabbed the twine and I doubled that up, tied a bow, did not need to put you through that pain, and I used one of my micro dots to set that in place, getting rid of all the little fuzzies. And those are my 5 cards. I hope you enjoyed this series, my 5-card 1 kit series for the Simon Says August 2018 card kit. I really enjoyed this. I know I'll be digging back into this one very soon. I really enjoyed coloring it. It got me back to my colored pencils, which is another reason why I did switch to the 5 cards in 1 kit, because I can go to the medium that I absolutely love. Colored pencils are my medium of choice. They are the longest out of all of the mediums as well. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that button. You want to make sure you don't miss any more videos coming. We've got lots that's coming out, especially this week, so stay tuned. All the products that I used outside of the kit and even the stamp set will be linked down below. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below as well, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Again, I do hope everyone is enjoying their holiday weekend if you're in the States with your friends and family. I hope you're having a wonderful time, but always remember, it's a vacation. 9 out of 10, we got a day off. So what can we do? Always be creative. Be creative.